He was once a pastor. Now, he says Jesus Christ did not even exist.
Why does a loving God have to send you to hell to burn for eternity because you do not believe in him? It doesn't make any sense. Yet he says he loves you.
How does someone go from the pulpit to this?
It's supposed to be a Jewish man, Yeshua, Messiah. And the Jews had thousands upon thousands of messiahs. They did not have that. Have you ever wondered why the Jews do not believe in Jesus Christ?
Mykael Udy is one of Nigeria's most vocal atheists.
Life is meaningless.
And in this interview, he opens up about living Christianity, finding purpose without God, and his thoughts on African spirituality.
I was ordained a pastor in 2011, and from that point on, it was a small church. We started growing it, and in a bid to become a better Christian, you throw yourself into the Bible, and you want to learn more about God. You want to learn more about Christianity because you want to serve God better. Basically, you want to be a better Christian. You want to show God that you are committed. You want to prove that commitment, And so you dig deep, you study, and over time, as you study, you begin to find out that things do not make sense. You begin to find inconsistencies in the Bible, inconsistencies with the timeline historically. You begin to find that, okay, so the Bible is supposedly talking about the whole world, but the language throughout the Bible is focused only within a specific area in the Middle East. Like it never goes beyond that area, never for once. Yeah, it's difficult because a lot of times Christians will now tell you, but there were no countries at the time, so there's no way you can hear Nigeria. But we had countries, we had empires, we had Egypt, we had other groups and tribes that we could easily relate with as Africans, but we never get to hear them. All we hear about was Kush, Ethiopia. And then Christians will say, yes, Christianity was in Ethiopia, which came through trade from Europe, So a lot of these inconsistencies, contradictions in the Bible itself, which one passage says one thing, another one directly contradicts it, and you begin to, what I did at the time was that I began to pause and take a second look at what I believed. I had believed this I grew up in a religious home. I had believed this from my childhood. So I had to pause, take a step, and start asking questions. And the church I was a pastor in did not take that lightly. So I met one of the pastors ahead of me, and he was like, why are you asking? One of the issues I had was hellfire. I was like, why does a loving God have to send you to hell to burn for eternity because you do not believe in him? It doesn't make any sense. Yet he says he loves you. And the response I got was, why are you asking questions that our pastor, the GO of the church, has not asked? And so I took a step back, went back and decided that, okay, I was going to stop, and I resigned from being a pastor in 2016. In 2016, I gave myself a year and decided, okay, I'm just not going to go to church. I just want to hear the Holy Spirit, because every Christian says they hear the Holy Spirit. I just want to take a year off church, and I just want to hear from God myself. Because God should be able to talk to me if he can talk to everybody else, So I didn't hear anything. It wasn't easy, I tell you. And a lot of times, whenever I have discussions with people who question religion or Christianity specifically, I always tell them it's not an easy road. It's a very lonely road, because when I began questioning, it was wild, because even while I was a pastor, I was questioning things, and it burdened my heart because I wanted to teach my members. Like, okay, I no longer believe this. I want you to see this. And so I started teaching them. They reported me to the pastor ahead of me. I was like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that here. I started questioning the tithe. Why are we tithing? According to the Bible, you should only give tithes to the Levites. It was a tribal thing. You should only give tithes to the Levites. And even to a certain extent, you take that tithe to the house of God. You take it there. There's a part of that tithe you will not sit down and eat. And now use a part of that same tithe to buy strong drink and shack in the house, in the presence. So why are we now giving the tithe to a person called a pastor who is not a Levite, who is not from Israel? I found it troubling. And so I started teaching my members. And they, like I said, reported me to the pastor ahead of me. And I said, no, we can't continue like this. So I resigned and decided that I was going to just go out of church, not stop being a Christian, but go out of church. Even when I had stopped going to that church, the backlash was insane.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
The backlash was insane. I was on Facebook. I was writing my thoughts. You check Facebook, you see my name, Mykael Udy. I was expressing my thoughts, just writing. And bro, I was getting backlash. My messenger was full of messages. What you will regret, you will cry, you will come back. Well, it's been how many years now?
You're not back yet.
2024, I'm not back. But they want you to go through they want you to suffer because that is what proves them right. Like, okay, yes, they are. And that is another thing I don't get. Why does the belief in a God, the minute I say I don't believe in that God or I stop going to church, why does that God have to inflict me with pain to prove that he's real? Why can't you show me love? And I kept getting these messages and all of that. But it wasn't easy. Even my parents, at the time, my mom was heartbroken. But we still found a way to go about it. And she passed away and she was but it wasn't a smooth road. It was hectic. But you just had to, and sometimes I had to hide the fact that I no longer believed in it, because if you were in a religious society, you go to certain places and you say you're an atheist, you might just get blacklisted.
Yeah.
You don't get opportunities as much as you. Considering I am into business, it wasn't smooth sailing at all. But now there are certain circles I can express my own belief and be fine. But there are certain places as well that I will not.
Okay.
Jesus Christ, I mean, this man was supposed to be Jewish, so Jesus Christ wouldn't have been his name.
Jesus would not have been his name?
He wouldn't have been. Jesus is Iosus, is from Greek. Iosus Christi. Because now in Christianity, people just think Jesus Christ means Jesus is his name, then Christ is his surname. No, Christ means Messiah.
Okay.
It basically means anointed one. Okay. All right. In Hebrew, his name was supposed to be Yeshua Messiah. So Yeshua Messiah, meaning Yeshua the anointed one. Okay. Now, because the New Testament was written in Greek, which is weird for a Jewish man who couldn't have learned classical Greek and had 12 disciples who were fishermen and tax collectors, couldn't have learned classical Greek. Yet we find that the New Testament, the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, were written in classical Greek, Koine Greek. We know today, factually, that none of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, were written by eyewitnesses. They were written years. Of course, people will say, yeah, historically, that's what happens. Historical accounts are written years after yes, agreed. But the thing is, none of these issues are written by eyewitnesses. So what is the credence? What's the credibility behind the Gospels? There's no fact, none. And then Jesus, like I said, is not like Jesus Christ is his name and surname. It's supposed to be a Jewish man, Yeshua, Messiah. And the Jews had thousands upon thousands of messiahs. They did not have that. Have you ever wondered why the Jews do not believe in Jesus Christ? They don't. I read a book that specified what the Messiah, specified the requirements the Jews had that the Messiah was supposed to fulfill.
Okay.
Jesus did not fulfill any of them.
Can you just give me a rundown of some
First
of
of all, Jesus was not supposed to be born from a virgin. If he is the Messiah, according to Judaism, you are supposed to come from Judaism, like every other society, patriarchal society, registers registers you as a person from your dad.
Okay.
So your name comes from your dad. But really, you had to have a biological birth, not adoption. All right? Jesus was adopted by Joseph. Mary was supposedly impregnated by the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And so there was no, Mary's lineage doesn't work because nobody in Judaism rates genealogy from the woman's side. Nobody does that matriarchally. It's always patriarchally from the man's side. And there's no way he got the genes or biology or blood from Joseph. That is number one disqualification from being the Messiah. In Judaism.
Okay.
Christianity acts like Judaism is not an actual religion that has its laws. It is. I mean, Christianity was born from Judaism.
Yes.
Every time we see in the Bible, Judaism, Christianity Paul quotes Old Testament prophecies to claim that those prophecies were about Jesus and Jesus fulfills them. But somehow, Christians want to deny the fact that Judaism has strict laws that specified how the Messiah and who the Messiah was supposed to be. Do you understand? The first thing that disqualified Jesus from being a Messiah was the fact that he was supposedly born of a virgin. And that is big. You don't even need any other excuse. That alone disqualifies you. And that alone is where the Jews completely throw it away and like, nah, you can't say you are born of a virgin and you trace your lineage from your mother when we don't recognize that.
Even Islam also says he's not.
Yeah, Islam says
that he's just a prophet.
If you had said he's just a prophet, it's beautiful. But when you say he's the Son of God and he's the Messiah, according to Judaism, and it's a serious claim. It's a lot of times Christians don't understand how huge that claim is. For the Jews, it is a massive claim because there have been several messiahs who claimed that they were messiahs and they died. To the Jews, to them, a Messiah that comes should take them out of Roman captivity. None of them did that. The Jews were under Roman captivity until the Romans wiped them out in AD 60 CE. Wiped them out completely, wiped out Jerusalem. In fact, if I'm not getting this wrong, the stones from the temple in Jerusalem, after it was sacked, were used to build the Colosseum, where the gladiators
fought and everything.
You know, so that's one of the reasons I do not believe. I do believe, though, this is my belief, I don't believe there was an actual Jesus Christ of Nazareth. I think the story was created off of any of the other messiahs that had claimed that they were messiahs, and a religion was formed
out of
any of those guys.
Okay.
The thing is, from the minute I stopped believing in a deity, the minute I stopped believing that there was a God who ordered my steps, who would give me inspiration from my heart, I began to see that the same decisions I was attributing to this God and were giving me success, when I made those same decisions and more outside of this structure called Christianity and all of the belief system, I was still getting success.
So you were succeeding without God?
I was succeeding without him. Anybody can succeed without God. I mean, one of the richest men in the world, Elon Musk, is an atheist, a self-proclaimed atheist. It was only recently when he wanted to, and you know that is political because he was moving towards Trump.
Let's even digress a bit. One of the Nigerian Pentecostal churches that you have close experience with.
Okay. No, I know that is a lie.
Oh, claimed that he was their biggest supporter.
I know that is a lie. I can categorically say that is a lie because I know how that church works. Like I pointed out, there is no one African tradition. Africa is a huge, it's a huge coming together of different beliefs, different ideologies, different thought patterns. we're just jumbled up together. And African, for instance, you hear somebody saying, it is not our tradition that homosexualism or homosexuality, it doesn't exist in our African tradition. But there is no one African tradition where homosexuality was a crime. There was never. In fact, the words were there and they lived in society. They lived. You found same-sex activity, same gender activity. You found cross-dressers, several. So there was no one from Gabon to Gambia to Kenya. The traditions were wide and varied. Now, that means that you can't have value based on that society, because society generally determines what value or morality you place on whatever. You go to certain societies and this is not moral, and you go to another society and that is moral. And that is where I will always say morality is completely subjective, not laid down by some supreme being, even though those people want to believe that it is objective and it is laid down, but it's not. It is that society you're in that decides, as it molds itself over time, that decides what is right and what is wrong. So yes, I do find certain aspects like Ubuntu in the Zulu tradition, where children are raised by the community, togetherness. I find that valuable, and that's something we say over here in Nigeria, that it takes a community to raise a child. So that's something we can relate it with, even as an atheist. It doesn't have to do with deities and gods scratching the earth. And
Okay.
First off, we have to come to the realization that life is meaningless on its own. There is no meaning to life, nothing whatsoever. We are born without any purpose, except you belong to a group. The minute you belong to Christianity, you belong to Buddhism, you belong to Judaism, and then you start having these purposes. But you are born without a purpose. In fact, your entire existence is an accident.
How so?
It's not planned.
The fact that we're humans is not planned?
It's not planned because it's not like, evolution is a thing, even though people want to deny it as much as possible. Now, it wasn't like there was an end product. If you say we were created in 7 days, there is proof now that the first humans that got into Australia got into that land. The Aborigines got into that land about at least 40 years ago.
40,000 years ago.
40,000 years ago, at least and they were researchers are looking at the idea that there could have been earlier people who entered there over 80,000 years ago. That means I should discard what the Bible says about the earth being created 6,000 years ago. Yes, because if the Bible says the world is created in six days and God rested on the seventh, and that, in fact, in Judaism, from the creation of the world till now is not up to 6,000 years, about 5,000, approximately 6,000 years.
Yeah, I think 5,000 is a specific number. 5,600.
5,600, yeah, it's not up to 6,000 years. But we have fossils in the earth that prove that humans, not really our species, go back at least 100,000 years ago. At least 200,000 years ago. We can prove it. We've seen the bones. We've seen the fossils.
That's something you can hold.
We can hold.
As against the Christian
which we should just accept by faith.
But again, there's also, even about that,
yes,
there's also the school of thought of saying that the creational story that is being talked about by Christians is they borrowed from...
Yes, it is actually borrowed. If you read Genesis, and a lot of people do not know this, if you read Genesis, you will find at least Genesis 1 is different from Genesis 2. A lot of people do not know this. Genesis 1, the creation lines are different. The order of creation is different from Genesis 2. In fact, okay, in Genesis 1, you find that you're created. God speaks over an empty space and says, "Let there be light." And then there was light. And then goes ahead to create things day after day after day. and then finally creates, in I think verse 26 of chapter 1, creates humans and tells them to go multiply. And then in Genesis chapter 2, you find that this same God now claims that there is no man in the land he created. You check Genesis, you see there, after he had done the creation, he then says, there is no man to take care of the land. And then he now creates Adam from, okay, what about these other humans you have created and told to go multiply?
In the first chapter.
In the first chapter. So it means that somebody who wrote, like I said, I mean, we were talking earlier and I said the Bible was written, different parts of the Bible were written at different times by different people, you know. And so you find out that whoever wrote Genesis 1 and whoever wrote Genesis 2 had different schools of thought. Because in Genesis 1, every single creation, everything about creation, the name of that God is Elohim. Let us, God. God did this, Elohim. And then all of a sudden in Genesis 2, we start hearing about Yahweh. There is no mention of Yahweh in Genesis 1.
So, because people will tell you, the names that were given to the God of chapter 1 to the God, everything is just God.
No. That is why it's important, because a lot of people do not want to read. The minute you read and actually take your time, and that is where I was a Christian when I found all of this out. I wasn't an atheist. I found out that, okay, why is the name different? Because Elohim is the Canaanite pantheon. Just like you have the Greek pantheon of gods, Zeus, Hera, Aphrodite, all of them listed in that pantheon. And so in Canaanite pantheon, the head was El. Elohim did not mean God. It meant the body of gods, all of the gods. There was a God that I love so much. His name is Yam. I love so many. There's Baal. There's
Baal, which was the god
which the Israelites now said is an idol. But they worshipped him initially and the beginning. Time. Yes, they worshipped him. But as their monotheism grew after they were captured by Babylon, they experienced, because a lot of what they believe, like we were talking earlier, they borrowed from other cultures. They borrowed from, for instance, if you see Genesis 1, it talks a lot about vegetation. Egyptian mythology is heavily based on vegetation.
So they borrowed from Egyptian
They borrowed
mythology,
from, because they borrowed from Assyria, they spent time in Assyria, they spent time in Babylon, they spent time, and then finally spent time within Rome. So that is where the idea of a virgin birth, because it was a common thing for Christianity. Now it looks like it's a special thing because Jesus, but there are several gods who were either born by a virgin. I mean, even the guys who founded Rome, the founders, I think Romulus
and his brother,
they were born of a
virgin who are suckled by a wolf.
Thank you. So it was a common theme back then, before enlightenment came. It was a common theme. You could claim, I mean, Mithras was born from a rock. Like, just imagine coming out from a rock. Like, it was just born from a rock.
Those stories exist.
Like, they existed. We say it that way, we now make it look like atheism is a religion or a physical or a worldview that needs to be expanded. Not really. If we talk about secularism or humanism, yes, we should talk about, and you find Christians who say they are humanists, which is weird because you believe in a God that wipes people out at random, so how are you a humanist? And that's where also you stretch it. You find Christians who say they are feminists. How are you a feminist when a large percentage of the Bible is misogynist and patriarchal?
Not just even the Bible, in regular,
religion, everyday, like...
Yes, there are the churches that women cannot climb the altar.
Exactly. I mean, you see other churches where women get on the altar, and then you see other people, no, it shouldn't even be.
Exactly.
Because it's written there in the Bible.
In the Bible, that they should not speak.
Shut up in church.
Exactly.
You get, so it's for us as a humanist, because I am an atheist. Being an atheist does not mean I have to propagate anything. It just means I don't believe your claims about gods. I don't. I might write about my atheism, I might write about my journey, I might debunk your claims online, but I won't go on the streets and preach and give you pamphlets and say, there's no God. No, it doesn't make sense, because I'm not preaching. I'm not trying to win souls to atheism. Atheism is simply, no, It's just like somebody who says, I don't play football. He doesn't go about. That's why when people say atheism is a religion, it's a stupid thing to say. It's a very stupid thing to say. It's not a religion. For you to have a religion, you should have a deity that entire religion is focused on, and then you should have dictates. You should have doctrines. Atheism has no doctrines. If I bring another atheist here, we would have different opinions about a wide range of subjects. But the only thing we would agree on is that in fact, there are certain atheists who will tell you that they do not, because there's the strong atheists, and then there's the weak atheists who say, I don't believe only in the Christian God. So there are different schools of thoughts like that. I belong to the group that I do not believe in any of them. None of them, the traditional ones. So there's really no goal. But when you talk about humanism or secularism, that is where we now push for a secular society where people treat each other better based on being humans, not based on their religious tenets, not based on the do's and don'ts of Christianity or Islam or the laws given by ancient Iron Age humans who couldn't have known better. I mean, these people at that time did not know. They felt that the stars were fireflies. They felt it was something I mean, imagine somebody telling you that the stars will fall. Star fall. How? Do you get? I mean, in Genesis 1, you see God creating the heavens and the earth and the sun. And then he says, after creating the sun and the stars. The sun is a star. But he didn't know that. And that shows you the mentality of the people who wrote these things. They didn't know. And so I feel like I wrote something 2 days ago. I was like, it's time we let go of Iron Age beliefs. We are in our own age, an age where these guys from that Iron and Bronze Age couldn't have imagined. They couldn't have imagined that we have phones and we can talk to people across to the ends of the earth. Like, if I would use that parlance, you can talk to somebody in Australia. They would never believe that would happen.
That would look like magic.
Yeah, come on, and imagine that was happening then. Oh, a religion would have started. Another religion would have started. So there's a lot of these things would happen. But for us as atheists, we're not propagating atheism because it's not a religion. We might propagate humanism. We want humans to treat themselves better outside of religion. You want a secular society. Nigeria is supposedly a secular state, not bound by Christian, but we still find every day that laws are enacted based on religion. And that's why
Sharia law exists.
Come on. Homosexuals are being killed. The other day on X, I saw homosexuals being, and that does not mean an atheist has to believe that homosexuality is right. Okay, just to clarify that, because there are atheists who
are also,
but generally, there's nothing to push about atheism. I'm just saying I don't believe in your gods. The same way somebody says, nah, I don't like football. He doesn't come and preach to you. No, don't, why are you watching football? Don't watch it. It's a crime. Nah, so that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome. And we have come to the end.